Hey everybody, what's going on? So, I recently took a week-long trip to New York City with my girlfriend. We've both never been to New York, so this was our first time there, and I wanted to just talk about the accessibility. How accessible was the experience for both of us? My girlfriend is also visually impaired like I am, and she's also a cane user, so that's another reason why I wanted to talk about how accessible this trip was. Not going into every detail because it would be a real long video, but let me just start with just getting there. Okay, so first of all, we decided not to fly to New York from Chicago because that's where she lives. I flew into Chicago, spent a little bit of time there, then went to New York with her. We took an Amtrak. Now, both of us had never really taken an Amtrak before, so we thought, okay, we knew the trip was going to be rather lengthy, but we decided to go for it anyway, although I do regret getting coach seats because, yeah, I cannot for the life of me sleep on a plane or, as now I know, on a train either. I'm a side sleeper and I can't lie down on my back and just doze off. I mean, I could doze off for a little bit, but not like a good 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. So besides that little snag, we did get quite a bit of assistance and just the help was pretty good in general. Amtrak has this service called the Red Cap service, so I believe it's some folks who actually do wear red caps who help people, passengers with disabilities, board the trains, make transfers, things like that. Although I will say that we were put in a little, like a little golf cart kind of thing to be taken to our train, and our driver was he was a little speedy, and there were just people just all around us, and I swear if I stuck my elbow just out a little bit, I probably hit a pole or something like that, so I really kept my elbows in. On the train, though, the assistance was a little bit subpar, but they did mention that they were understaffed. Okay, so getting assistance for the food, that was a little tricky because we weren't sure how that service went about. It was a little tricky there because there was a cafe car, but we weren't sure whether we should go to it or not because, I mean, blind person going from one train car to another. I didn't want to take my chances with that, and who knows. But there was a passenger sitting next to us who was with his disabled, I think, sibling, and she was a wheelchair user, and he was nice enough to just get us, what we wanted. We didn't want to ask for too much assistance, but he actually was a lot more helpful than anyone on the train was. So we get to Penn Station. We get to New York finally. We had a layover in Washington, D.C. It's massive. I mean, I knew it was going to be a big train station. I just didn't realize that it was just blah. Not only is the New York City subway there, but also the line to Long Island and a few other lines as well. And it was just, it's a maze. But the good news is that we got a lot of assistance. We asked for help. My girlfriend asked for more help because, she's more vocal about this than I am. We did get the assistance. We were able to manage how to do, pay for our subway tickets, do the turnstiles, things like that. Because the thing is, once we got off the train, we were supposed to head to the subway, and a few stops later, we would be a block from our hotel. I'll get back to the subway later because I have a few things to say about it. So accessibility in the form of assistive technology was very helpful to us because the way we would navigate was we would both have apps open on our phone. So my girlfriend would have Google Maps or I believe it was Apple Maps, one of the apps for maps, and she'd be getting turn-by-turn directions, walking directions, and I would have the app Soundscape. And the thing is, she would give me the general directions and I would tell her, okay, we're going in the right direction. This is the street that we're heading close to. So this would be our system. So basically, one would keep the other in check. I know it might sound a little bit too much, but I thought this worked pretty well because, like I said, she was giving me the general directions and I was telling her, okay, we're still going the right way. This is the street or the intersection that we're at. So yeah, it worked. Oh, and just a little bit of news. Yeah, my girlfriend, she's no longer my girlfriend. She's my fiance. So from this point on, I'm going to mention her as my fiance because it sounds a little weird calling her my girlfriend now. But yeah, so yeah. We went to a Broadway show, actually. I'm not really a theater person, but the thing is, if you're going to go to, to see something at a theater, hey, why not, go big and go see something on Broadway? We went to see Dear Evan Hansen. Now, I'd read about it a little bit. My fiance told me a little bit about it, but I didn't really know what to expect. It was great. I highly recommend just checking it out if you haven't. Now I need to watch the film, even though I was told that the film isn't as good as the play. So while we did sit pretty far back, we did get devices so we can hear the audio descriptions. Now, they were not live audio descriptions, but they were pre-recorded, but the timing was actually, it was pretty spot on. I didn't really feel like I missed out too much, although I was fiddling with the buttons a little bit because, I was trying to figure out which is the volume up, volume down button. There were three buttons, so I was told not to touch one of them. I didn't want to mess with any of them for the first half of the play. But still, it was great just being able to experience a Broadway show with audio descriptions, and that's something I've never done before. I really enjoyed just experiencing Broadway as a blind person. Another thing we experienced was we went to Top of the Rock, Rockefeller Plaza, Rockefeller Center, in the Rockefeller area. I am seriously brain farting right now, and when I edit, it's gonna make me look really, really bad. But anyway, there's an attraction there that takes you up about maybe 80 stories up. You have a 360-degree view of the city. You can go to the very top, and there's no ceiling. It's just, it's basically a really big balcony type view of New York. I could make out the Empire State Building where Central Park was. It was just really, it was pretty awesome, to be honest. I mean, everything was blurry, but I could still make it out. And we took a lot of pictures. We took a lot of just videos. But the best thing was that we got almost a private tour because we were both visually impaired. We kind of bypassed all the lines and stuff like that. We were almost given a private tour of the entire thing, and I thought it was great. The individual assisting us, he was very friendly. He was very, understanding of just our disabilities, and yeah, I enjoyed it. We got to see other things like St. Patrick's Cathedral. We took a picture in front of Radio City Music Hall. We went to Central Park but got rained on that day. That's another that's another story for another day. I'm never going to underestimate that East Coast weather anymore. It changes on a dime. The food was great, though. We did enjoy quite a bit of food as well, obviously, being over there in New York. But I think the one experience as far as accessibility is concerned that stood out the most for us was when we went to Harry Potter, New York, the Harry Potter store in New York. That could be a video all by itself right there. I'll admit that I wasn't expecting to have much of an experience there. I was thinking maybe we might be in and out, maybe in an hour and stuff like that. The person who guided us, the staff member who guided us, that is someone who went above and beyond, and that is someone who clearly loves their job. But she let us go through a lot of the wands. I got to, touch a lot of the wands. I didn't realize that a lot of the wands actually have different patterns, based on who their owner is. And I just thought that was really interesting. We got to just, go to a bunch of different places in there. We got to, yeah, we got to touch quite a few things, actually. The entire time, it did not feel like I was being left out or anything like that. I felt like I was experiencing the store in a great way. And yeah, I mean, it was incredible, and my fiance had the exact same experience. She really loved it, and she's only seen like three of the Harry Potter films, but still, she really enjoyed it. Oh, and just for the record, I will say, Ravenclaw, the best Hogwarts house. And if you happen to say otherwise, I have a wand and I know how to use it, I think. Something else that I noticed though is that before going, I had this idea, just like everyone else does, that New Yorkers have this attitude of like, being very rude and uptight and, just in your face and things like that. I'll admit that that stereotype kind of went out the window. I don't remember so many people asking if we needed help crossing the street or doing this or just getting directions, and sometimes we did. And one time we were coming back to our hotel, we got lost, but just by a few blocks, and somebody who was nice enough that lived there in the area basically helped us out just to get our bearings. And yeah, I don't recall experiencing just so many people willing to help. So those were the good things that happened accessibility wise in New York City. But there were also a few bad accessibility related things that happened as well. Street crossings. Okay, so when you're blind, you have to wait for your parallel traffic to go. You have to know the traffic patterns, especially when you can't see if a light turns green or red. But the thing is, a lot of people just like to cross when they think the coast is clear, and I'm just like, wow, really? Because that makes it a lot more confusing for me to know when to cross exactly. So I really do have to listen for traffic, or, if the light signals me, makes that sound to let me know when to cross. Another street crossing incident, so a couple times this happened actually. My cane got grabbed and I started getting pulled. The first time was by an Uber driver, so we called an Uber to get to our hotel. And it was crowded and there was a lot of traffic. It was nighttime, and the driver found us, but he had to go outside, look for us. And then he grabs the bottom of my cane and starts pulling me, and we're both like, wait, what are you doing? And my fiance is like, whoa, 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 don't do that, because it's like, yeah, it is uncomfortable. And on top of that, I'm a blind person, I'm not a dog. You don't have to drag me, you can take your elbow, just, hey, hashtag just ask, don't grab, right? Then when we were going to Harry Potter, we were trying to cross a street, and next thing you know, someone who saw that the coast was clear, but we were still trying to figure out if the coast was clear, all of a sudden started grabbing my cane. He like bent down, started tugging at my cane, and we're just like, no, 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 don't do that. So I get it. You're trying to quote unquote help, but at the same time, that's not the way you do it. No, you don't ever touch a blind person's cane, especially because that's kind of our eyes on the ground. Subway. New York City subway. Ah, the subway. Okay. Pros. Expansive. It pretty much goes everywhere. I think it's a flat rate for, if you want to go from the start of the line to the end of the line in any of the routes. Cons. It's so confusing to just make sense of the whole thing, especially if you're from out of town. We had to stop at the Times Square station, and boy, I wish we didn't have to make a transfer there, because I swear there were like 10 other lines that you could connect to. And first of all, we had to find the right platform and then try to ask if this was the right train or not, because it was just hard to notice what train numbers, or just identify them in general. It was difficult for us to do that. There were signs, but at the same time, they were confusing. So I don't know. They probably just need a better system for those who are blind or visually impaired. I was a little scared that we were likely going to, board the wrong train or make a wrong turn and then have to backtrack, but that would have been a whole other thing right there. And also the fact that a lot of the subway stations, they do not have elevators. So if you are a wheelchair user and you're traveling, you're limited to however many stations there are, and you're having to take a bus to a station that is accessible, and we found out the hard way. We have to lug our luggage up the stairs and then back down on the way back. But yeah, then as much as I say that the navigation worked well with both of us having apps and navigating like that, there's a limit to that, because the closer you get to midtown and downtown, the taller the buildings are, the more they get in the way of any GPS signals. So sometimes my app was telling me to go one way, and then my fiance's app was saying go the other way, and then we just kept getting confused. And yeah, we were just running around in circles, and a lot of times it just got confusing. So a lot of times we had to just start over. It did get frustrating a few times, actually. So I don't want to end it on a bad note. So I'll mention something funny. I mean, it was still bad, but it was funny that it happened. So this happened on the same day that we went to the Broadway play. And this was our equivalent of having a dinner and a movie. We made reservations at an Italian restaurant. So we decided to just, Uber over there. And the next thing you know, we made our way inside, blah, blah, blah. We, took our seats. And then when they handed us the menus, we noticed that a lot of the dishes were different from what we were looking at online. And next thing you know, it was obvious that when we ordered pasta, the waiter mentioned that this was a French restaurant. And the thing is, the Uber driver who directed us to the restaurant, actually, it was the restaurant next door. So we basically got dropped off at the wrong restaurant. And yeah, it was embarrassing, but we laughed about it afterwards. So yeah, the waiter was like, "Hey, this is a French restaurant. We don't serve pasta." And we were like, "Oh crap." Luckily, it was next door. But yeah, those were some of the accessibility related experiences that I had in New York. Really, to be honest, I was not ready to go back just yet. I really wish I could have stayed maybe 2, 3 days longer. But you know what? I really do want to go back in the future, because I just want to experience it some more. And yeah, I've always wanted to go visit New York. So this, it finally happened. And I'm glad that I went on this little adventure with my, well, then girlfriend, now fiance. So yeah, it was great. So anyway, for those of you who've been to New York, or who are from New York, how accurate is this whole thing about the street crossings and just anything else that I might have mentioned? So let me know. You can put it in the comments below. But yeah, I will see you in the next video, and I'll talk to you later. All right, take care.